straight from a plate, a timeless glimpse of ancient. Except for the background, the high-rise rock garden of Hong Kong, a concrete colony which looks as though someone has thrown Manhattan and Gibraltar together and towed the whole lot into the South China Sea. This isn't red China, but red, white and blue China, where the trams came from Britain, but 98% of the population is Chinese. Crowded, noisy, exciting and exotic, Hong Kong hits you like a fistful of firecrackers. Hong Kong has been a British colony since 1842, and the funicular which hauls you up the peak on Hong Kong Island was running when Queen Victoria was still reigning. With gradients of nearly 45 degrees, it's not for the nervously inclined. When it comes to cramming people in, Hong Kong makes a sardine tin look spacious. Somehow they managed to squeeze 5 million people into 400 square miles. And from up here on the peak, where the rich live, you get a top person's view. Although Hong Kong is the main island, there are 235 others. Just a ferry hop away and linked to Hong Kong Island by road and rail tunnels is the heavily developed Kowloon Peninsula. Behind the curtain of concrete, the farmlands of the new territories stretch into the mountainous distance. Where they end, red China begins. Hong Kong means fragrant waters, and the harbour is one of the most beautiful in the world. Pleasure boats leave all the time on sightseeing excursions and trips to the neighbouring islands. The Cross Harbour ferry only takes 7 minutes, and for 4p, first class, it must be the cheapest mini cruise of them all. For more than 100,000 people, the fragrant waters of Aberdeen Harbour also means home. Hong Kong's floating boaters live on stilt houses, junks and sampans in a vast human pontoon. This boat is different. It's gliding back 1,000 years. The Sung Dynasty village at Kowloon is a vivid recreation of a 10th century Chinese township. It cost £1.25 million, and craftsmen were imported from red China to give it complete authenticity. The bridal procession in the village's mock wedding ceremony wears red too, but that's just because it's the colour of joy. In the Sung period, marriages were arranged. Bride and groom have not met before, and she is still veiled. No wonder he scattered rice in front of her for luck. And this is what a wealthy wedding guest would wear, a 1,000-year-old fashion that could still turn the heads at Ascot today. Now, in those days, wealthy women didn't work, and the best way for your husband to get rich quick was to deal in silk. Right now, Hong Kong's material wealth is coming from another direction, tourism. At this gateway to Asia, more than 2 million tourists are welcomed each year. The colony's home-based airline, for example, links London with more than 20 other destinations, including Tokyo, Bangkok and Australia. The aerial dogfight over low fares means even more visitors from the UK. The same airline now offers 4 weekly flights from London Gatwick. By July, the service will be daily. Their cheapest return fare is £302, which has to be booked and paid for at least 2 weeks before departure. But the real breakthrough with reduced airfares is that they've brought down the cost of package holidays. The Lee Gardens Hotel in Causeway Bay, one of Hong Kong Island's busiest entertainment and shopping areas, is featured in several UK package holiday brochures. Its status is reflected in an international clientele. There are 900 rooms, all have colour television, air conditioning, bath and shower. One company offers a 10-day holiday with 7 nights at the hotel from £410 to £420 according to season. This covers return flight from London, but in common with most packages here, no meals. Luckily, Hong Kong has more restaurants than you can shake a chopstick at. Around 3,500, representing every nuance of Chinese and international cuisine. And they won't take too big a bite from your budget. Even the food stalls are a feast, with 100-year-old eggs. Actually, they're only a fortnight old. Crabs bound, gagged, and ready for the pot. Fish dried out like parchment. Ducks pressed as flat as dinner plates. Though sometimes one man's meat is another man's python. In winter, snake soup is a great... And the Chinese snake shops do a roaring trade. So do the dazzling floating restaurants of Aberdeen Harbour. What they may lack in gastronomic finesse, they make up for in gaudy exuberance. And the Chinese really do enjoy their food. I'm eating like an emperor in more ways than one. And this is the famous Peking duck, which was once a royal dish in ancient China. The skin is the most prized part, and it's cut with great ceremony into small slices. Now I've got to wrap them in these wafer-thin pancakes. Yeah. Beat Pancake Tuesday any time. For value and variety, only one thing beats eating in Hong Kong, and that's shopping. Hong Kong is the supermarket of the world, with bright and gleaming shops displaying everything from ultra-modern electronics to traditional porcelain. One venerable tradition, however, is on its last legs. No more licenses are being issued to rickshaw men. So, as each one retires, the rickshaw trundles one step nearer the history books. And one day, history will catch up with Hong Kong, for the colony is built on borrowed land and borrowed time. 100 years ago, we leased the New Territories area from China. In June 1997, 9/10 of the colony will have to be handed back. Will the red Chinese flag fly over Victoria Peak? Nobody seems to be worrying. Right now, like the gun down there on the harbour, which signals noon each day. Business is booming. But today's airfares have changed all that. So from Hong Kong, Chris flew another 1,000 miles south to 2 hours by road from Pattaya.
They're the kind of ramshackle shops you'd expect to find by a country roadside. Only this isn't the country, it's almost in the middle of Bangkok. It isn't a roadside either. Main Street in the Thonburi district of the city is a canal.
You don't have to be in Thailand very long to realise that thing is the expected, not for Westerners anyway. And the canals, or klong, on which Bangkok is built, are no exception.
There was a time when the only way to reach these houses was by water. They faced the canal because when they were built, there was nothing but undergrowth behind them. Now there are roads, and the old dependence on the canals is as rickety as the tin and timber stilt houses themselves. The Klong are still the quaintest quarter of what is a raw and raucous city. Choked with traffic and thick with fumes, Bangkok's streets are all more or less identical. The only real clue to your whereabouts is that the closer you get to the middle, the more shops have glass in their windows. A city without a centre, Bangkok is the eternal outskirts. And it's sweltering. Even now, in the so-called cool season, the temperature can hit the humid 90s. The pleasures of the place come spontaneously. It's not an ancient town. One of the most famous buildings is the Oriental Hotel, where Somerset Maugham and Joseph Conrad stayed. Most package visitors will find themselves in modern but less expensive hotels. Bangkok's riches are its temples, the Wats. They're as splendid as the city is drab. On the western bank of the Chao Phraya River, the Temple of Dawn's 250-foot spire is studded with Chinese porcelain. On the opposite bank is the Grand Palace. No longer used as a royal residence, it was planned by a king educated in England, so the gas lamps in the tropical gardens come from London, and the main building was designed jointly by British and Thai architects. West met east at the eaves. The most fantastic temple of all is Wat Phra Kaew, whose roofs and towers and prayer bells and pagodas match up to everyone's king and I concept of the country. The personal chapel of the sovereign houses the most sacred statue of the Buddha in Thailand.
3 times a year, the king comes here to change the Buddha's costume. It's the only place in the country where the ceremony takes place. And so on this single bejeweled site are brought together the 2 most profound influences in Thai life, the monarchy and Buddhism.
The religion is something of a hybrid. The Erawan shrine on a clamorous street corner is dedicated to a Hindu god. The dancers are hired by the thankful. There are nearly 400 temples in Bangkok. In this one, the Buddha was encased in plaster, but it was moved and inadvertently left out in the rain. The plaster cracked to reveal this, a 10-foot figure in solid gold. It weighs 5.5 tons. At current prices, you're gazing at a cool £52 million of pure profit. Outside Bangkok is the village of Dam Nuan Sadwa. The floating market takes place every morning. These people still belong to a true canal community. They have no roads. The water is their marketplace, their sampans, their stalls. Pineapple and papaya, cauliflower and cabbages, melons, coconuts, fish, ginger and garlic are bought, sold and bartered. Most tours move on from the floating market to the Rose Garden, a riverside hotel with a country club atmosphere. Here they stage the Thai culture show. It's potted culture, but nonetheless honest for that. This is the fingernail dance, traditionally a dance to welcome the royal family. It has all the charm and shyness that makes the Thais so enchanting. Cockfighting attracts heavy betting in the villages. The commentary at this point explains that due to the Thai love of animals, the birds are not allowed to kill each other. Sword fighting is one of the martial arts. A tiff in the Douglas Fairbanks household might have turned out a bit like this. Thai boxing, where everything goes. Knees, legs, fists and feet, or as it's known in England, football. One aspect of Thai culture is not included in the show. Bangkok's reputation for a lurid nightlife grew up in the Vietnam War, when GIs came here on R&R, rest and recuperation. 2 streets have come to symbolize the city's night scene, Pat Pong 1 and Pat Pong 2. They take their name from the man who used to own them. In fact, they're neither as sleazy as Soho, nor as bizarre as Copenhagen. Apart from the touts who will rip you off, the air is almost one of innocence. And if you do want a quiet bar with a dartboard or a straightforward disco, you can find that too. 2.5 hours southeast of Bangkok, curled round a crescent of sand in the Gulf of Thailand, is Pattaya. This too is an R&R resort for sailors of the US 7th Fleet. So Pattaya also has its Pat Pong, here simply called the Village. It's like a frontier town with gift shops. The hotels employ security guards to stop the most blatant aspects of village life from straying onto their premises. It's an odd mix of international beach resort and the Orient, of pagoda bars and Western hotels. And even they erect ornate houses to attract benign spirits to whom food and flowers are offered. Transport around town is by pickup truck, and you bargain over the fare just as you bargain with the shops selling silk and with the tailors who can knock up a suit in 24 hours and then charge £25. The beach itself is hectic with every kind of water sport, windsurfing and parasailing among the most popular. It's supposed to be divided into different sections for different activities. Nowadays, the excursion boats do brisk business running trips to islands or quieter beaches, where you can get away from, among other things, excursion boats. Pattaya has a high standard of hotels. This one is where most British visitors stay, a 13-night, 2-centre holiday with 4 nights in Bangkok and 9 here costs between £459 and £485. That doesn't include any meals. Buffet breakfast in the hotel will cost around £2. About the same as dinner at a restaurant in town. The local cooking tends to be highly spiced, and the speciality is seafood. And here's another R&R centre, but this one is for elephants. After a 6-month stint working in the jungle, elephants need to have 2 or 3 months rest. This kraal on the outskirts of Pattaya is one of the places to which they come. Their mahouts, all from the elephant tribe in the north of the country, sleep near their animals in shelters of bamboo and palm. Since elephants have to be exercised on their holiday and the young ones trained, the enterprising manager of the camp decided to combine that with a show for the public.
This is a holiday which may cost not much more than 2 weeks in the Mediterranean. But there the comparison ends. This isn't a place to come to simply to lie around and get brown. Here, it's not so much the body as the memory that gets burned. I'm told the elephants made a great recovery. Next, the long haul back to southeast.
More expected.
The sun, the prime ingredient of a holiday on Rhodes, was ordained by the gods.
The legend goes something like this. Zeus, the chairman of the board of gods, decided to divide the world and dish out the various lands among his fellow directors. Everyone got a share except the sun god Apollo, who happened to be on a business trip at the time. So Zeus was very apologetic and offered to start the whole process all over again. But Apollo said that wouldn't be necessary because he'd just seen emerging from the Aegean Sea a brand new island rising from the depths like a dripping mighty Wurlitzer. He didn't put it quite like that exactly, but whatever he did say did the trick because Zeus granted him the island, which turned out, as you may have guessed, to be Rhodes. That's the legend, and Rhodes has never looked back.
And Apollo must be smiling still, because the sun shines here 330 days a year, and the summer temperatures are seldom out of the 80s. So this is a fairly typical holiday activity, slightly more strenuous than most, because here you occasionally have to watch the scenery go by. The Triton leaves Rhodes Harbour every morning at 9 o'clock to cruise up the east coast. She's an old ferry boat which used to run to Turkey, or as it's referred to now, Asia Minor. At midday, Triton anchors in a rocky bay. The passengers land for lunch to be greeted on the quayside by Mikaeli, who's been greeting tourists on this quayside for 17 years.
Kalimera. Hey, hey, hey. Good morning. Hello. Fan vad taskig bort du då. Ja, vadå?
Lunch follows in a shaded taverna on the beach. Grilled fish and salad consumed to the strains, I think is the word, of Mikaeli's violin. Mikaeli is 73 this year. He used to be a farmer, but he says he likes his new job better. It's his boast that he's never had a music lesson in his life. After lunch, it's back to the boat and on to one more beach. Yet, for all its sunshine, there's a good deal more to Rhodes than its sea. The waterfront of Rhodes town, jingling with expensive yachts, provides an instant index to the hodgepodge of history which has been made here. The statues of the deer stand where the Colossus of Rhodes is supposed to have straddled the harbour entrance, one of the wonders of the ancient world. Beside the 3 landmark windmills, the lighthouse sits on top of a Venetian fort. Rhodes was attacked, besieged and conquered for centuries, but it's within the massive ramparts of the old town that the island's past survives most vividly. Rhodes was the headquarters of the Knights of St. John. They bought the island in 1306 and then set about fortifying the city. At the centre was the palace of the Great Master, which today is perhaps the most complete medieval castle in existence. Leading from the palace is the Street of the Knights, a scene of medieval life so pristine it seems more petrified than preserved. Within 2 streets, the centuries and the silence have slipped away. The buildings may be medieval, but the bazaar is strictly a 20th century affair. There are 3,000 tourist shops in Rhodes, most of them in the old city. But 7,000 locals still live within the walls, squeezing their lives between the souvenir shops. In the Cafeneum, the last of the traditional coffee shops, old men gather to pass their days playing tavli, a version of backgammon. And the baker still fishes his loaves from a wood-burning oven. Such places still keep a toehold amid the deluge of bars, restaurants and gift shops which sell everything from jewellery to drink, fashion to furs. But whoever would think of buying mink in an island with a subtropical climate?
There is, of course, a reason for such oddities. When Rhodes was liberated in 1945, it brought to an end 647 years of continuous occupation. In a mood of rash magnanimity, the Greek government granted the island duty-free concessions on certain items, and a number of them were then taken away again almost as quickly. The ones that weren't have now been paid to by Greece joining the common market. But some effects of the old dispensation remain, which is why this is still about the cheapest place in the world to buy a decent umbrella.
What purport to be Paris couturier's models sell for as little as £4. At one time, a Greek buying umbrellas here would have had to declare them to customs before he returned to the mainland. There was even an umbrella duty-free allowance, 7 per person. This is unashamedly package holiday land for nearly 1 million arriving by air and on cruises. The hotels are all concentrated in the northern tip of the island, leaving the south undeveloped. So there's little point in fly-drive holidays or going completely independent and finding your own accommodation. This hotel is typical of the larger ones. About 3 miles from Rhodes town, or a taxi ride of something over £1, it's on the west coast. Here there's a cooling breeze, but the beaches are mainly pebble. One unusual feature is that the swimming pool, terrace and bar have been built into the hillside at rooftop level, 11 floors up. A number of British tour operators come here. 2 weeks half board costs from £245 to £351 according to season. The hotel has a nightclub, taverna and tennis courts. Car hire is expensive. You can pay more than £100 a week for the smallest cars, and petrol is a hefty £1.55 a gallon. So there are several flourishing motorbike rental businesses, and endless excursions pound between the island's sites. Petaloudis is a favourite, not just because this cool cleft in the mountain is such a contrast to the rest of the island, but because in high summer, millions of butterflies settle on these trees, attracted by the resin.
They do say that if these butterflies are disturbed, the whole sky goes dark as they take to the wing. Let's see what happens. It's the old story. We should have been here next week.
Being Greece, the tours also take in a ruin or two. But the island's most spectacular sight is Lindos. High above a cobalt sea, on a 370-foot cliff, stand the columns of a temple erected to the goddess Athena 2,000 years ago. St. Paul would have looked on these stones when he landed in the bay below. From the 9th century BC, almost to the coming of Christianity, this was one of the most important and powerful cities in Greece. Even the temporary splint of scaffolding can't smudge the grandeur of the place. Below is the village of Lindos, curled across the hill like a dog collar. It's the Greek village everyone's been looking for, where little streets clamber among the houses. The complete village has been designated an archaeological site, which places it under strict controls. For instance, there can be no hotels, and the houses have to be whitewashed every year before Easter. There's also no traffic except for the fleet of donkeys. They load up with day trippers at the bottom of the village and saunter off up to the Acropolis.
The special laws in Lindos extend even to the donkeys. They have to keep to a speed limit, or so I'm told. But with the temperature around 100 and a long climb ahead, who's arguing? Come on, boy, you can make it. Come on.
There are package holidays in villas and rooms in village houses. In summer, a package is the only way to assure yourself of a bed. And that's just what you get. A bed, a basin with cold water if you're lucky, and in this house, a view. Bathrooms are shared with the other holidaymakers in the house. So is a small kitchen, which is really only used for making tea or coffee. Everyone has the use of the shaded patio. It's an almost primitive holiday, the sanitation in particular, but one which many would say comes close to the true spirit of Greece. In this house, the cost, including flights, goes from £180 to £276 per person for 2 weeks. That also covers breakfast in high season. To that, you have to add what you spend on other food. You can get a good meal with wine for between £3 and £4 a head. Lindos has one of the best beaches on the island, sandy and surprisingly secluded. The taverna behind it is a favourite when, at the end of the day, Lindos is left to its locals again.
Rhodes isn't as Greek as most of the Greek islands, but then with the history it's had, you'd hardly expect it to be. It's more cosmopolitan, and its tourism is a big industry. But beneath it all is that infectious friendliness that is truly Greek. And above it all, unfailingly, is Apollo's sun. Yes, for a lot of people, this will turn out to be paradise.
Terrace, as you're no doubt aware.